Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. I am so excited to be your guide because, well, we have an absolutely epic story to tell today. It is the dramatic tale of a great empire's fall and its incredible, shocking rise right back to the top. So get comfortable. We're going to look at exactly how China went from being a defeated nation to a massive global superpower.
Seriously, have you ever wondered how that actually happens? How does a country go from being invaded and conquered by outsiders to becoming one of the single most powerful nations on Earth? It's just an incredible journey. Today, we're going to unpack the history, the struggles, and those huge decisions that shaped the China we see today.
All right, part one, the center of the world.
Okay, let's dive right into this. To really understand China today, we actually have to go back hundreds of years. The ancient official name for China is Zhongguo, and that translates to the Middle Kingdom or Central State. You see, for thousands of years, Chinese emperors believed they were literally the center of the civilized world. In fact, back in 1793, an emperor named Qianlong had a visit from a British ambassador named George Macartney. Macartney really wanted to start trading, but the emperor, he just said no. He felt his empire was absolutely perfect already and needed absolutely nothing from the outside world.
That brings us to part two, the century of humiliation. So, things changed drastically in the 1800s. For the longest time, massive natural borders protected the Chinese empire, but soon, foreign ships started showing up. Britain desperately wanted to buy huge amounts of Chinese tea, silk, and porcelain. But China? Well, China still wanted nothing from Britain except for silver. Think of it kind of like this. Imagine you have a friend who keeps buying your delicious lemonade, but they absolutely refuse to accept any of your cookies in trade, and they just slowly drain all your allowance money. Britain was running completely out of silver, and it caused a massive trade deficit.
So the British found something the Chinese would buy, a highly addictive drug called opium. When China tried to stop this terrible drug trade, Britain actually sent warships. It's kind of like a bully forcing someone to buy harmful junk food, but with devastating, real-world consequences. This sparked the Opium Wars. China suffered defeat after defeat, quickly losing control of territories like Hong Kong in 1842 and later Taiwan to Japan in 1894. And this brings us to a really important keyword, the century of humiliation. This was a devastating 100-year period of foreign invasions and terrible defeats that totally shattered the empire. Think of it like being bullied at school for a very, very long time. Eventually, you might promise yourself that you're going to hit the gym, get incredibly strong, and make absolutely sure nobody can ever push you around again. That is exactly how these events shaped modern China's mindset.
Let's move to part three, the rise of communism.
After all those defeats, the ancient Qing dynasty finally just collapsed in 1911. The country fell into total chaos as people desperately searched for a way to be strong again. And a new idea took root: communism. This is a system that puts the whole society above the individual person. Now, why did this catch on in China? Because it actually aligned pretty well with an ancient Chinese philosophy called Confucianism. Confucianism also teaches that social harmony and obeying your superiors is way more important than your own private life. So, for a lot of Chinese people, this brand new system actually felt a bit familiar. And this brilliantly illustrates the extreme dedication of those early communists. Under intense pressure from rival political groups, a young leader you might have heard of, Mao Zedong, led his followers on a massive retreat called the Long March. They walked over 12,000 kilometers through incredibly dangerous mountains and rivers. To put that crazy distance into perspective, out of the 86,000 people who started the march, fewer than 10,000 actually survived the terrible hardship.
Right in the middle of all this, the whole world was plunged into World War II. Japan invaded China, bringing unimaginable tragedy and suffering to the Chinese people, especially in cities like Nanjing. It was a very, very dark time. But surviving this terrible trauma together actually united the Chinese people against a common enemy.
After World War II ended, a fierce civil war inside China finished with Mao Zedong and the Communist Party as the absolute winners. The rival nationalist group ended up fleeing to the island of Taiwan. So, on October 1, 1949, Mao announced the creation of the People's Republic of China, taking total, absolute control of the mainland. However, Mao's incredibly strict rules caused some massive problems at home. A farming plan called the Great Leap Forward resulted in a devastating famine. Then Mao launched what's known as the Cultural Revolution. This was a radical 10-year campaign where students, called Red Guards, attacked teachers and intellectuals to destroy quote-unquote old ideas. Education was heavily restricted, and honestly, the country suffered deeply from the inside.
Moving on to part 4, opening up the economy.
Everything shifted again in 1976 after Mao Zedong died. A new leader named Deng Xiaoping stepped up, and he completely changed the rules of the game for China. While Mao was entirely focused on strict rules and constant revolution, Deng Xiaoping was practical. He focused on the economy. Deng decided to throw open China's doors to global trade. He encouraged the whole country to manufacture products for the rest of the world to buy, and he even sent Chinese students abroad to learn Western technology, a real game changer.
But here's the catch. Even though the economy opened up and people started making money, the political system did not open up. In 1989, students gathered in Tiananmen Square to demand freedom and democratic reforms. The Communist Party responded with a violent military crackdown, ensuring that absolute political control remained strictly in their hands.
Let's move on and see how this builds our modern world. I mean, how does this deep history, the ancient pride, the terrible humiliation, and this newly opened economy actually affect you and me right now?
Which brings us to part 5, China today and tomorrow.
Under its current leader, Xi Jinping, the country is stronger than it has been in centuries. Xi Jinping has concentrated more power in his own hands than any leader in decades. Because of their massive growth, 80% of China's trade now goes through a very narrow waterway called the Malacca Strait. Now, why does this matter to you? Because this is exactly the route that ships use to bring your smartphones, your video game consoles, and your sneakers all across the globe. Right now, the US and its allies control this area, but China desperately wants to control it to protect its newfound wealth.
And get this, they actually have a deadline. By 2049, which is the 100th anniversary of the People's Republic of China, their goal is to completely cement their status as the ultimate global superpower. They aim to push the United States out of the Asia-Pacific region, and they have very clear ambitions to take control of Taiwan. They are absolutely determined to never ever let a century of humiliation happen again.
Finally, Part 6. Key points to remember.
Wow, what a journey! We've covered a lot of heavy history today, so let's do a quick, friendly review to make sure we have the main ideas locked in. So, the crucial point is this. First, ancient China was the rich and proud Middle Kingdom. Second, the century of humiliation brought foreign invasions and terrible loss. Third, communism emerged from all that chaos and radically united the people. Fourth, opening the economy under Deng Xiaoping made China wealthy. And finally, today China is a true global superpower, incredibly focused on protecting its vital trade routes.
There's a famous old saying that every crisis is an opportunity, an interesting time. Well, the 19th and 20th centuries were certainly interesting and incredibly difficult times for China. But as we look ahead at the 21st century, with China rising to challenge the whole world order, we really have to ask ourselves, who will be the winners and who will be the losers in this newly shaped global landscape? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and I will see you next time.